Hi, everyone, and welcome to PayTalks Ask Us Anything. Again, my name is Alex. We're glad to have you back for episode 2 today. I'll be chatting with my friend Michael Jan, a senior solutions architect here at Amazon Pay, about keeping your business secure and preventing fraud. Now, Mike, I know you have a lot of experience working on these issues with our customers. It's great to have you here. You're a true global citizen. I hear you've lived in 6 different countries. Is that right?
That's correct. So I was born in Taiwan and then moved to Bahrain, Singapore, the Philippines,
Wow.
Panama, plus a few more states in the US before I ended up attending Northwestern University in Chicago.
Woohoo.
Cats fan?
Yeah, I went to Northwestern too. I actually didn't know that about you until today.
So after I graduated, I worked at a startup in the city for a while before moving to Seattle 4 years ago to join Amazon Pay.
So what kind of problems do you work on as a solutions architect?
The primary role of a solutions architect is to work with businesses to figure out how they can best use Amazon Pay. We talk about their goals, we kind of dig into their requirements, and then we help the businesses integrate with our solution.
Now, so Mike, we recently did a survey where we asked merchants to elaborate on some of the reasons why their customers might be hesitant to use a new online payment method. And the majority of responses used adjectives such as trust, fear, unfamiliarity. So can you talk about, from a shopper's perspective, why is there such hesitation and lack of trust when sharing financial information online? Because I feel like this is as big of a problem as it ever has been today.
Well, it's not surprising that shoppers are worried about sharing their financial information, right? Most of us have had firsthand experience dealing with identity theft or credit card fraud. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's never clear where your information was leaked. Make things worse, payment fraud has only gotten worse during the pandemic as businesses have scrambled to expand their online presence. And we honestly expect it to continue to grow. There are regulations to protect consumers, but even I hesitate whenever I have to enter credit card information to make a purchase online. There's simply not enough visibility into who has access to our data and how it's being protected.
Yeah. I mean, it's overwhelmingly true because customers are more skeptical than ever. And I think that's reflected in a lot of surveys that have been done recently. I read a payments.com survey from KPMG that reported that 68% of US citizens were worried about the quantity of data being collected online, and 40% questioned the ethics of companies collecting that data. So let me ask you, from the perspective of a developer or a solutions architect, what is top of mind in your job in terms of trying to alleviate these concerns? What kind of solutions do you propose from a technical perspective? And what can e-commerce businesses start thinking about here?
So, like I mentioned, consumers want to know who has access to their data and how it's being protected. From a data perspective, developers should only request the minimum amount of information they need and display the information they're collecting as well as what it's being used for. They definitely need to give shoppers the ability to revoke access. From a security perspective, developers need to make sure that at a minimum, they're being PCI compliant and they are meeting basic consumer protection regulations. It's a responsibility of businesses to protect the data that they collect. And if they lack the expertise or resources to do so, then I recommend looking into a third-party solution, because maintaining shopper trust is extremely important in the e-commerce industry.
So in our study with BWG, when respondents were asked how big of a concern and pain point are fraudulent purchases for your business, the predominance of respondents used adjectives like big, huge, high, large to highlight the importance of fraud. And in fact, this is a quote we got from one of the merchants we surveyed. They said that fraud has always been a big concern for us. We have always tried to have the best fraud protection to avoid fraudulent orders. We want to avoid chargebacks and negative feedback for the business. They also said we stop fraudulent orders on a daily basis, and it's a really time-consuming matter. So let's go back to that idea of chargebacks. Obviously, merchants want to provide a great customer experience, but chargebacks are time-consuming. It creates a tension between the business and the consumer sometimes when they don't go smoothly. So can you shed some light on ways to reduce chargebacks or best practices to handle them with success so that that tension can be mitigated?
Yeah, I get it. Dealing with chargebacks is a time-consuming exercise. It takes important resources away from core business activities and hurts revenue. In some cases, it can actually prevent small businesses from making payroll, right? But that said, it's natural to feel like chargebacks are a negative, tool that buyers use to, for fraudulent reasons. but chargebacks can boost buyer confidence and encourage e-commerce transactions.
Mhm.
So, there are a lot of great resources out there on ways to reduce chargebacks or best practice for handling them. But here are 3 tips that I think merchants often overlook. Tip number 1, provide clear billing descriptors. The first thing most folks do when they suspect fraud is check their credit card statement. So make sure the descriptor that's provided can help to identify their transaction. Tip number 2, provide accessible customer care. Customer care requires an investment of time and effort, but in many cases, you can avoid chargebacks by providing a responsive customer service for dissatisfied customers. Tip number 3, consider using a third-party payment solution. If chargebacks are a major concern for your business, you should consider using a third-party solution that offers chargeback management. A third-party provider can help reduce chargebacks, and in some instances even provide chargeback protection.
Yeah, I imagine that a third-party solution can be very useful for scaling up your ability to handle fraud. And when it comes to scaling security, what are the big challenges for businesses that are processing hundreds, thousands, or even millions of transactions per day or per hour? So here's another merchant concern we heard. This merchant said, we had to partner with our payment processor and have a dedicated fraud and risk account manager to manage our accounts and monitor purchase activity. Then another one expressed that there are no cost-effective solutions to prevent fraud at the level we have. So Mike, what are some of the cost-effective ways that businesses can enact security measures around transactions without breaking the bank? Is there an entry point you'd suggest for small, medium-sized businesses? And how about different solutions based on the size of the business? Any recommendations there?
Definitely. Managing fraud can be a very costly exercise, especially for small businesses, which might not have the resources or expertise to manage fraud effectively. I think the most economical option for most businesses is to use a third-party payment solution that specializes in payment fraud prevention. In some unique cases, an enterprise business might consider building their own solution if they can scale, or if their business is so unique that there is no existing solution on the market that fits their requirements. But even then, I would recommend that they carefully weigh the pros and cons of building that expertise in-house, just because it can be very expensive, especially if dealing with fraud is not part of their core business.
When small and medium-sized businesses are evaluating these third-party solutions, how do you evaluate these solutions next to each other and choose which one to go with?
Yeah, the most obvious answer is cost of payment, right? Businesses need to make sure that the cost of the solution is not prohibitive, but price should not be the only deciding factor. I recommend at least considering these 2 other factors when evaluating third-party solutions. So number 1, domain expertise. Every industry is unique and has its own nuances. When evaluating a third-party solution, businesses should make sure they define a solution that understands their industry and can protect against industry-specific attack vectors. Number 2, maintenance and ease of use. The cost of payment is typically assessed per transaction, but businesses should make sure that they account for the cost of maintenance. For example, if the solution requires quarterly software updates, as well as the cost of any resources they may need to commit to use the solution itself.
We heard from another merchant in this survey who said that they want to see communication on how they're protected as a seller. Credit cards, eBay, et cetera, all have great rules to protect the buyer, but the seller is left out to dry in most cases, even when we have rock solid proof of fraud or a buyer being unreasonable, such as wanting to replace something they bought years ago or many months past a return policy or warranty period. All customers have to do, according to them, is call the credit card issuer and ask to have it removed from the bill. Then that sort of doesn't suit the merchant very well. So I know that merchants are worrying about bad actors in this sense. How do you respond to this? And what can payment processing services or credit card services do to help businesses feel better taken care of in these situations? So it's not all about satisfying the customer, but also the seller.
No, they're exactly correct, right? Unfortunately, this is something that I hear very often. And it's true that most policies will protect shoppers and not businesses. I think what payment processors need to realize is that fraud can really negatively impact businesses, and they need to provide protection if the businesses can provide proof that they delivered what was promised, which is actually something that Amazon Pay does.
Now, let's turn to Amazon Pay specifically for a minute here, because you're deeply in the weeds with our products and solutions, and I think you can shed some light about fraud prevention through Amazon Pay. So many merchants and Amazon customers know about our A to Z guarantee. It's very customer focused, but how does that specifically help merchants? And what can you tell us about Amazon's advanced fraud protection technology and how it differentiates itself in this wide world of e-commerce we live in today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about Amazon Pay. Definitely my area of expertise, right? So Amazon Pay uses the same fraud protection technology used on Amazon.com. And we have policies to protect both shoppers and businesses. So for shoppers, we offer the A to Z guarantee. The A to Z guarantee allows shoppers to file a claim with Amazon Pay and request a full refund if they are not satisfied with their purchase. For businesses, we offer the payment protection policy. Under the payment protection policy, Amazon Pay does not hold the business liable for fraud-related chargebacks if the business and the transaction meet the requirements of the policy. Our goal as Amazon Pay is to make sure that both shoppers and businesses are confident in any transactions processed by our solution.
Can you talk a little bit more personally now and specifically about, one of the challenges you've worked on related to security as a solutions architect, one-on-one with our merchants? How do merchants work with you on these challenges? And what can we expect in the future from Amazon Pay and other payment service providers?
Yeah, so a recent challenge I've been working on is the tension between convenience and security. So as a consumer, we want transactions to be quick and easy, but we also want to feel confident that the payment is going to be secure. Unfortunately, convenience often comes at the expense of security. So as an example, consider card on file model where businesses will store your payment information for future transactions, right? It's very convenient, especially if you don't have payment information handy, but there can be huge security concerns depending on how the business stores the data and how it restricts access to it. The solution is undoubtedly the application of AI and machine learning. Lots of payment providers, including Amazon Pay, already use the technology to proactively detect fraud, but there's still a lot of room for improvement in real-time fraud detection. I wouldn't be surprised if payment providers continue to invest in personalized fraud analysis.
So with that, we'll switch over to the questions submitted by our merchants today and do our best to answer some of the concerns around fraud and security that people are having these days. Welcome back, everyone. This is PayTalks Ask Us Anything Part 2. We're glad to have Mike Jan back with us to field our merchant Q&A today. Mike, thanks for being here. We're also grateful to have another Amazonian join us in a little bit, Vanessa Wallace. She's the Senior Manager of Machine Learning Science and Buyer Risk Prevention for APPS. And Vanessa has hands-on knowledge of the risks across the e-commerce landscape and can help shed some light on how Amazon Pay specifically can address some of these risks for your business, as well as how machine learning and AI is really shaping the future of payment security. So stick around for that as well. But without further ado, Mike, let's jump into these questions. Thank you for sending such great questions this time. The first one we got was, how do you know when an inquiry or request is fraud? In other words, this respondent is asking, what are some of the telltale signs or red flags you might see as a merchant seller that you can share from a solutions architect standpoint that they should look out for?
Well, there's no way to know for sure, but some warning signs include a shipping address that's in a different country than the billing address, maybe generic customer names, fake email addresses, and purchase volumes and amounts that are vastly different and atypical for your industry and business.
So another question asks, what is the best way to handle large payments made by credit card?
Large payments are more likely to be declined as suspected fraud. So with Amazon Pay, we recommend using asynchronous authorizations. So async auth is an option that we provide that improves decline rates by giving Amazon Pay up to 24 hours to confirm the legitimacy of a payment.
Next question is, what if I get a fraudulent charge? How will Amazon Pay reverse that fraudulent charge without a hassle?
If the fraudulent charge was approved by Amazon Pay, you will not be held liable for the chargeback if the transaction is covered by the payment protection policy. You simply have to respond with the required information and documents, and we'll cover the chargeback cost.
Good to know. So I hope that covered some of what you folks were looking for today. We're going to switch over to talk to our colleague Vanessa now, who will shed some more light on how Amazon Pay works specifically to mitigate some of these issues and also share some future insights about the payments industry when it comes to AI and machine learning. Vanessa, thanks for joining us. Could you tell, I gave them a little intro about you already, but could you tell us from your own words a little bit about your role at Amazon Pay?
Absolutely. So I'm a senior manager in machine learning science, and my team owns the models that evaluate payment risk for transactions among Amazon Pay, as well as some other areas.
Could you share how Amazon Pay in some specific ways is protecting businesses of all sizes from fraud from your standpoint?
Sure. Amazon Pay has state-of-the-art fraud prevention mechanisms that work behind the scenes in order to allow good transactions while stopping fraudulent ones. So for Amazon Pay, we leverage the wisdom and the system that exists across all of Amazon company-wide. And then we specialize both the expertise and the system for Amazon Pay itself in order to fight fraud on behalf of our merchants. So we utilize the data that we have from transactions as well as historical reported fraud data, and utilize transformations on top of that data to create thousands of different signals, such as changes over time, linkages, and trends. And then of these, we identified the most important signals for detecting fraud, and then utilized the latest deep learning algorithms to generate risk scores. We utilize these risk scores in combination to determine which orders to allow, which is the vast majority of them, and then which orders to deny, which protects both customers and merchants from fraudulent transactions. And then in addition to utilizing this information from across the Amazon ecosystem, we're utilizing feedback from investigators, banks, and merchants like those of you watching to continually fine-tune and update these processes. And we've got a team of scientists, analysts, program managers, continually monitoring and updating our systems in order to fight fraud on your behalf.
Vanessa, can you talk about how machine learning is shaping the future of payment fraud protection? What role does it have to play? How big is it? What's exciting you about machine learning in the future of this?
So I think we've if I reflect a little, we've moved from fighting fraud manually and utilizing human judgment in order to evaluate, to being able to create robust, large-scale systems that can automatically detect and identify fraud in order to enable mitigation. We take those systems and utilizing the latest advances. Where I see us going is being able to have the systems automatically learn and detect, basically fine-tune itself, and continuously adapt to new patterns in combination with the ability to do this faster and faster. We are able more and more to interact with the customer on the fly using automated mechanisms to enable good customer interaction and allow some of these transactions for good customers to go through even more with our rapidly adapting and real-time systems.
So thank you once again for joining us for PayTalks Ask Us Anything. My name is Alex. We really appreciate my guests, Mike and Vanessa, for this episode, shedding such great insights on payment security. We hope you took a lot away from this episode, and we hope you look out in the future for more episodes around payment security and machine learning and AI making its waves in the e-commerce industry. Thanks again for joining us. So long until next time.